Have you guys ever thought about the phrase gun control? Is it actually about guns, or is it about control and the government's just using guns to kind of stage it as a scapegoat? America doesn't need more gun laws, more gun restrictions. We just need to adapt and change, kind of make some changes to our current laws, as well as get a stronger hand to enforce the ones that are already in place. In the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about the current gun laws that are in place, the flaws and loopholes within those laws, and the roles that our leaders partake in. So when talking about the current gun laws, you have to think about a few things. According to an article on CNN, 85% of prosecutions happen under two laws. The first being the possession of a firearm by a felon, and the second being a possession of a firearm while committing another federal crime. That leaves 20 laws virtually unused. So of the 22 federal laws, only 2 of which really get used. So why would we create more laws that aren't going to get used anyway? Why don't we just change the ones that we have to fit our current needs? Balance the scale a little bit. Secondly, as some of you probably remember from my last speech, gun dealerships are the only ones that are required to do background checks, if you actually have a license to do background checks. The Gun Control Act of 1968 says that anyone engaged in the business of selling firearms has to have a background check. Now, engaged in business is defined as a person who devotes time, attention, and labor to dealing in firearms as a regular course of trade or business. Now, this excludes people that do it as a hobby, do it as, maybe some extra money on the side, or maybe they're selling a private collection, inherited, something like that. It excludes those types of people. Which leads me right into the flaws and loopholes within our laws. 9% of all background checks require looking into, which some of you may remember from my last speech as well. That's 1 in every 10 people have to go into depth when they are doing the background check. And you also may remember that I talked about the 3-day limit, is that there's a 3-day limit that if the government hasn't decided whether you can or cannot have the gun, they go ahead and sell it to you anyway. But the most common loophole is actually called the gun show loophole. That's kind of the street name, if you will. Basically, it says that I can go to a gun show and purchase whatever firearm I want, and no one is required to make a background check on me. So now you're probably asking yourself what our leaders are going to do about this. Why this is still going on. Well, when asked about gun control in an interview, President Obama said, "Members of Congress then cut budgets to make it impossible to enforce the law." But think about that for a second. Look at the big picture. Gun prosecutions have actually declined under the Obama administration. Gun rights groups argue that Obama is not even focusing on the people that he should be focusing on. He's focusing on trying to take away guns from law-abiding citizens. So it's easy to understand why Congress is limiting Obama's power, because he's not focusing on the right targets. If we continue to fund Obama and just let him, throw money at gun control, no one's going to have a gun, and we'll end up deer hunting with baseball bats. So there's a few steps that we need to take to get back on track. You ask yourself, what needs to be done? Well, the first is we need to change the 3-day period to a 7-day period, 7 business days instead of 3. That would allow a little bit more time for the background checks to go through. Also, we need to fund the federal background check system. We need to revamp it. The NICS is the system that is used when you go to get a background check done. They check the NICS system. This system was originally put online in 1998. That's 18 years old. Now imagine what technology advances we've had since 1998. What if your cell phone was 18 years old? Would you think it's still sufficient? If you sent 225 million text messages, would it still work properly? 225 million, that's the number of background checks this system has done in its 18 years of existence. I think it's time for an update. And if the sheer age itself doesn't scare you, think about, let me backtrack a second to the 3-day limit. The average check takes 3 to 7 days, right? Sales made after the 3 days are actually called default process sales. According to a study by Mayors Against Illegal Guns, you're 8 times more likely to involve a prohibited purchaser than you are if the background check is resolved within 72 hours. So if someone is denied a gun after, say, 5 days, the background check comes back and they're denied, they already have a gun because the 3-day limit's up. So what's called a retrieval order is sent out. So the retrieval order is sent out, the agency sends it out, and actually in 2000, the NICS operations report says that 45,000 retrieval orders were sent out, only 5,000 of which actually got the firearm back. So that's why we need to adjust the 3-day limit over at least 7 days, so we can at least, maybe stop some of those before they get out. So now you're saying, but Brandon, I can't change anything. I'm not in a position of power. Who's going to listen to me? What can I do personally? So I'm here to tell you guys to vote. And I know a lot of us, some of us may not be, but come November, a lot of us are going to be eligible to vote. So think about this issue when you go to vote. Think about our current laws, the loopholes within those laws, and what our leaders are doing to do it. Do we want a president? Do we want a Congress? Do we want a government that's going to try to take away all our guns? Or do we just want one that's going to be strong and change the ones that we have now? So think about it when you're choosing who you want to lead this country in the next coming years. Thank you.
Yeah. So, in the voting aspect, if we are less, for your issue, I guess, who would you recommend voting for?
A Republican. I'm not going to say necessarily which one. I know Mr. Trump is very, he's not going to try to take them away from you, but I don't also know that he's going to try to take them away from anyone. So I think there needs to be a happy balance between who is going to try to strengthen the laws in order to keep them out of criminals' hands, but at the same time do the right thing as far as law-abiding citizens. Is that kind of answer?
I think that's.
Any other one? Yeah.
You know how when you said about reordering the gun back if they don't pass the test, is it illegal now that that they have the gun, or is it just that they never gave it back? Can you elaborate on that?
They just never give it back. It's still under their name. It's still under, they're still, if they already have their carrying permit and everything, they're still legally allowed to do it. And because of the 3-day limit, they're allowed. So
you're fighting for this idea that the laws or the regulations need to be changed or developed better.
Yes.
How can that happen? If, say, will voting really change that? What will actually change the laws or the regulations?
They need to be stronger as far as, like I said, I think that the limit is the way to go. The 3-day limit is the biggest factor in my mind as far as ways to allow law-abiding citizens to get it, but eliminate it from other people. I mean, I'm going to be honest, guns are never going to stop. We're never going to get them out of everyone's hands that should have them. But in order to take steps towards that, we need to start with changing, the 3-day limit to 7 days, or I don't want to change it farther than 7 days, because then I think people are going to just get annoyed and say, I don't want to wait a month for my gun. I'll just go buy it elsewhere, buy it from a private party. But I think that's your first step, is to start with the little things that can be done and then develop them from there.
Great.